Yesterday, I have tried to explain the importance of generosity. How is it important to easily discard all sorts of unwholesome states of mind, and how one can cultivate wholesome states of mind while one performs generous act. Today I would like to try to explain furthermore about the same topic in various ways. Before that, I would like to remind you today also some of the Buddha's own words. Monks, whatsoever states are evil, have part in evil, are on the side of evil, all these have the mind as their forerunner. Mind arises as the first of them, followed by the evil states. No other things do I know, O monks, by which, to such an extent, evil states not yet a reason arise, and good states that are a reason wane, as negligence. In him who is negligent, O monks, evil states not yet a reason will arise, and good states that have a reason will wane. Monks, whatsoever states are good, have part in the good, are on the side of the good, all these have mind as their forerunner. Mind arises as the first of them, followed by the good states. No other thing do I know, O monks, by which, to such an extent, good states not yet a reason will arise, and evil states a reason will wane, as heedfulness. In him who is heedful, O monks, good states not yet a reason will arise, and evil states a reason will wane. These are some of the words of the Buddha himself. Here the Buddha described how the mind has to be taken care not to arise any kind of negligence in the mind. Negligence means here in Pali word pamada, heedlessness. Because of that negligence, all sorts of evil states of mind arises. And it is there to destroy the good states of mind, which are a reason. So therefore, how much we need to try to cultivate the mind to keep away such destructive power, negligence. That's why the Buddha was expounding various teachings in various ways according to the natures of various people or various beings. As we have heard yesterday, generosity is an easy way to avoid negligence if the generosity is well performed with proper understanding. To perform generosity, there are many ways according to the religion and according to the human society and according to the nations. Here I would like to describe them in three ways at first. There are some generous act just to obtain the suffering-free state of mind, to be free from the suffering existences. To possess the suffering-free state. And there is another type of generous act. It is performed to expand the existences. And again there is another way of the performance of generous act, just to show one's social duties in the world. So in this way, we can classify them in three ways. According to the various religious background, if we try to analyze them, it will become clear to us. In the teaching of the Buddha, whatever wholesome deed we act, we perform, the main aim or the main purpose is to get rid of this suffering world. Sabba dukkha nissarana nibbana sasachikiriyaya is the word as the purpose of all sorts of wholesome deeds. To get away from suffering world and to realize the peace and real happiness through which one can experience actual bliss, blameless bliss. So therefore, whenever the disciples of the Buddha who know the actual purpose of performing various wholesome deeds, they perform the wholesome deed just to purify themselves and to free themselves from the suffering world. In the same way, when they perform generous act, their main purpose is to free themselves from this suffering world. That is why the well-versed, well-trained Buddhist people perform generosity not to expand the existence and not just to show the duty in the society, but to realize the actual peace. That generous act, we may say, the generous act to deliverance, to obtain the deliverance, to get rid of this suffering existence. There are some religions in which they believe that the existence doesn't cease because of the permanent nature of the self or the soul. And depending on that, they have the notion there is the highest existence. When one reaches to that existence, then their task is already completed. And they perform generous act to obtain that highest existence. So therefore it is called the generous act which is performed to expand their existence. And again, there are some religions in which they are dependent on something or someone. And they believe that there is the supreme being and supreme power. That supreme power will offer them deliverance, will offer them to get rid of all sorts of suffering forever. So therefore, they don't think that after this life there is another existence. They just do various wholesome or unwholesome acts to show either to their duties or in opposite way. For them, the generous act is just to fulfill the social duties. Therefore, there are three types of generous act according to the people's belief, according to the people's religious background. However, we are talking about the generous act according to the teaching of the Buddha. So therefore, let us try to have well-accomplished generous act, how we should perform it, to accomplish in pristine purity. To fulfill generous act to its real accomplishment, there are three ways. Whenever one accomplishes generous act, as we have already heard about, there should be the giving person as a donor, and there should be a person who receives the gifts of giving. And there should be something to give. What kind of benefit, what kind of virtue a qualification should have in those three parts of the aspects? It is said in the text, when a person wants to be a donor, he should have well-preserved precept. It might be quite strange for us, even to perform the generous act, one should have precept. Yesterday we have already stated, generous act is to drive away unwholesome state of mind. To drive away unwholesome state of mind, if our behavior is not pure, is not clean, is not unwholesome, is not benevolent, how we can drive away those defilements when we perform generous act? Generous act is also performed through body, through speech, through mind. And without having precept, how we can purify the physical act, the verbal act, and the mental act? It is quite difficult. So therefore, it is necessary to have well-behaved behavior. To possess that behavior, therefore it is necessary to have morality. And the Buddha himself mentioned that, which I have already read to you yesterday. What the Buddha mentioned: heart free from the stain of avarice. That is the word of the Buddha to accomplish the charity. And avarice is one of the defilements. The heart should be free from that defilement. And to make free our heart from that defilement, so there must be some moral virtue. So therefore, one who wants to perform well-performed, well-accomplished generous act, he should be full of moral behavior. And that is the one aspect which the donor has to be possessed. When he possesses that kind of moral behavior, and when he or she is ready or they are ready to give without any clinging, without any attachment. So attachment-free mental state also necessary in a donor. This is one virtue to fulfill or accomplish the actual generous act. And in another side, there is the receiver who is accepting the gift of giving. And he also, or they also, have to be fulfilled same kind of virtue. Their behavior, their nature should be well purified. Then only the acceptor will become well-prepared accepting person to produce good result of that wholesome act. And the thing which is to be given, it is also necessary to become pure. How then the object will become pure, or the thing which is to be given to be pure? The thing will become pure when the donor earns that thing or earn those things with lawful way, with his own effort, without giving any trouble to others, without harming to others. Through one's own effort, one's own good moral conduct, if the thing is earned, that thing is called Dhammiya Ladda, the thing which got according to the law. So therefore the thing should be lawful one. In this way, when these three aspects united together, that act is called accomplished generous act. If we try to think in this way, is it easy to perform a real wholesome generous act in its pristine purity? Then people may be afraid of, or how we can perform the generous act to make it so pure. And they may run away from that generous act. And to really understand, to fulfill the generous act, now let us try to see the defect of the generous act, which will give you more understanding how to perform the generous act to make it real, clear, pure. There are people, although they perform generous act, they have many sorts of motivation in doing the generous act. Some people perform the generous act, not actually they want to perform it, but there are some circumstances to perform it. They perform the generous act deterred by feelings of respect or deterred by fear of offending. Or in another word, circumstances occasioned by feelings of respect or fear. They perform the generous act. And this is one of the defects of generous act. And some people are there, they perform generous act because they are afraid of criticize, blame, or they're afraid of some kind of danger. That's why they want to perform the generous act. That is the another defect of generous act. And the third defect of generous act is that person or those persons gave me something as a gift. If I don't give anything to them, then what will happen? They are afraid of that. They actually don't want to give anything, but they had already taken something from some people. So therefore, they are trying to do the giving work, act, because they want to return something. And it is just like returning the borrowed things. And that is the another defect of generous act. And the another defect of generous act is, if I give something to someone, that is our nature, you see. All these things occur in our mind. If we are not really careful of our mind, very easy to enter various distracting thoughts. If I give something to someone, then they may return something to me in return of my gift. So they have some kind of desire to get something from someone. That is why they want to give at first. And that is the another defect of giving. And again, there are some people, although they do the generous act, perform the generous act, they give the gift very little, but they want in return in a great amount. See, there is giving, but the mind is so wonderful. In return, they want to get a lot. What happens then? They remove little amount of greed or attachment from a thing, and they increase great amount of greed in another thing. So therefore it is the another defect of the generous act. And there are people, they don't want to perform the generous act, but there are some kind of circumstances arising in them. Generous from generous, or generous after generous. In our family, the generous act was performed. See? They don't want to do the generous act, but they are thinking something that the family derived from generation to generation who were performing generous act. They can't neglect that. So that is why they are performing to protect their act of generation. And that is also defect of the generous act. And there are some people, they do generous act, but in the background, they have something in their mind. If I give something, what will happen? My good name will spread all over as a donor. Everybody thinks me as a donor. So they want to gain name, fame, and they have such intention to spread their reputation. Just to gain that reputation, they try to perform the generous act. So that is also another defect. And sometimes it is quite clear, whenever some people offer something, they want to, what they want to do? They want to carve their names, inscribe their names on the plate. Such and such person donated it. What's that? There is the hidden intention that his or her name should be remembered by all. And that is the desire to have reputation, good name. These are the 7 defects of generous act. If we understand these defects, then we know how to make effectful generous act. And we also get the proper message with those 3 aspects which we have already listened. Avoiding these types of mental attitudes when we perform the generous act, having understanding that the generous act is the one of the ornaments of the samatha and vipassana practice. See, this is the importance of generous act. It helps to develop samatha practice and it decorates vipassana practice. So therefore, generous act can lead to one to the suffering-free state. But not by itself, but through the practice of samatha and vipassana. But it can be the cause and condition to realize the suffering-free state. So therefore in the text it is said, Dhanampana samadhi vipassana cittasa alankaro hoti parivaro. It is also one of the suits of samatha mind and vipassana mind. Accompanying factor. So therefore, the generous act is quite capable to eradicate unwholesome states of mind and to develop wholesome states of mind. When we perform in this way various generous acts, then there are various wholesome results, benefits through it. Before we try to explain about those benefits, let us try to see a simple type of generous act. When we offer some food to someone, at a time there should be 3 types of volitional act. It is called in Pali Pubbha Cetana. First, Pubbha Cetana. Second, Muncha Cetana. And in the end, Apara Cetana. Pubbha Cetana means the volitional act which arises before performing the act of generosity as the food. What kind of volition is necessary at that time? It is said that the volition which arises before the generous act should be pure and clear, which is not surrounded by any defiling factors such as greed, hatred, delusion, envy, jealousy, pride, malice. All these mental states should be kept away before you give. And then the first volition which arises before the generous act is said Parisuddha Pubbha Cetana, well cleaned volitional first act. And while you are possessing that first volitional act before the generous act, and through the power of that volitional pure general act, and you are ready to perform the generous act at the moment, at the present moment. Now you are ready to give something to the receptors and the food you are trying to offer. When you are trying to offer that food, two aspects should be fulfilled. First one is you should remove your attachment or clinging or greed from that thing which you are going to offer. You should abandon that. And that is the first aspect to purify the volitional act during the moment of offering. And then try to offer the things hand to hand. Not throwing it towards the receiver. Sometimes there are people, although they give something, they give it just throwing, no respect, no any smoothness in behavior, politeness in behavior. They do it full of pride, as we throw something to some animals. That is not the way. To offer something in precise way, to make it real, accomplished generous act, it is said, you should give the thing hand to hand, with respect, with politeness, without pride. These two aspects also necessary to fulfill the generous act. In that moment, try to see your mental state or mind, whether it is pure or not, whether it is wholesome or not. If you're really acting in that way, your mind, your volition is really pure at that time. And that is what it is said, muncha chetana. The volition which arises during the moment of giving the gift is parisuddha, purified. In such moment, it could be called in Pali mutta chagi. Free from all sorts of attachment. That means mutta, chaga, who gives in such state of mind. And anuddhato, his mind never scatter at that time. Well focused in giving things. That is also another respect. You should try to focus your mind totally on that giving things. Therefore the Buddha used that word, mutta chagi anuddhato. And to have that qualification, therefore, those two aspects also should be well accomplished. When we give in that way, although you are giving the food, outwardly it is just something which is edible. But not just only the food you are giving at that time. You add some more in those offerings. What are they? When you give food, what is the need of food? All the living beings, without food, can they survive? No. To keep the life continuously alive, we need to take food. If we don't take food, we couldn't have longevity of life. We have to give up our life if there won't be any food to take. And we are familiar about those things. If we try to look at those countries where there are lacking of food, people are suffering from starvation, and try to see those small children, and you can realize how important the food is. Reflect to the Asian countries and African countries. Then we will get the proper understanding how important the food. So therefore food is the life. And you are not just only offering the food, you are even offering the life. Not only just you are offering the life, even you are offering beauty. Yes, it is true. If we are hungry, what happened to us? Could our face become bright? No. The face withers away. It becomes ugly. And again try to reflect in your mind those children who are holding a broken pot in their hand and waiting for some food. See them clearly, discernibly, then we can see how important the food to have beauty and handsomeness in our life. So therefore the food is there to become beautiful and to become handsome. Therefore the Buddha said, when you offer food, you are not just only offering the outside food, you are offering even the beauty. The second aspect, which is hidden in that food, you are offering as beauty. And if we don't take food, can we do the practice here? You cannot do the practice if your stomach is empty. And you are starving for food. Can you concentrate your mind in your abdomen, on your abdomen? No. Even if half an hour late to take the food, what happens to us? Yes, we need to reflect that. So half hour's time also very important for us. We cannot stay with hunger. And we lose our strength when we have to starve. We don't have any strength. So therefore, because of food, we get strength. When our belly is full of food, then we become energetic. But sometimes over-energetic. When we take too much. And when we try to do the practice, what we do? We try to nod our heads. and try to, then what we do? Try to exercise up and down, up and down. So therefore, food is very necessary for us to have strength. Therefore the Buddha said, through offering the food, you are offering strength. When we cannot have food, can we feel happiness or bliss? No. We get lot of trouble, lot of suffering. We might be able to face various kinds of other difficulties, but not the difficulty of hunger. Therefore the Buddha said, Jigatcha Parama Roga. Starvation is the greatest disease. Is it true? Yes. When we get disease, are we happy? No, we are suffering. So, when we are free from such disease, we are happy. Therefore, offering food means offering happiness. In this way, when we obtain sufficient food, and through which we get these benefits, and then only we are enabled to earn various knowledges. We can study, we can think, we can do the researching work, we can even do the practice. And through practice, we earn a lot of understanding. So in this way, through the food, understanding develops, knowledge develops. We can gather abundant wisdom in our life. So therefore the food is there to provide us various knowledges. These are the benefits which the Buddha himself described as the benefit of offering food. And these benefits, at first, you offer to the receiver. When that receiver gets all these benefits, what kind of thought arises in his mind or in their mind? Could they think towards that donor ugly thoughts, unwholesome thoughts, malevolent thoughts? Never. Oh, this person, because of this person, I am surviving. He offers me life, or they offer me life. They offer me beauty. They offer me strength. They offer me bliss or happiness. And they offer me understanding, knowledge. What a good person they are, or he is, or she is. And there will be in return, he also may wish May these people be free from suffering. May these people be obtained longevity of life. May these people be healthy, strong, blissful, happy, and full of wisdom. So in return, there will be the benevolent thought spreading over towards those givers, donors. What happened then? See, through that, unity arises. We get closeness, feeling of closeness through that generous act. So, to bring unity, generous act is one of the most important aspect, important faculties. Yes, it is true. Within our friends, if someone gets angry, if you want to please to him or her, at first what would you do? To make that person happy, if you try to think what he or she likes, and bring that thing and go near to him or her, say, "Look here, what I have got for you." What kind of behavior he or she may show to him or her? You might have that kind of experience. Although he or she may angry at that time, but when the other person trying to please him, and he or she goes there and just say, "Look here, what I have got for you," half of the anger may dissolve at that time. And second time, if you repeat again, and his head may turn away, and he or she may look at you. In that way, you can win that person, and you can make him free from that anger. And again, you will both become friends. Not only within friends, if we try to think about this whole world, how the unity surviving in this world, try to think, because of generous act. Because of generous act, giving act, there is some kind of unity in this world between or among the nations, among the peoples. If the generous act wouldn't act properly, then there will be division in this world. So division comes through what? Division comes through hatred. Divisions come through envy. Division comes through jealousy. Why we are trying to compete each other? Try ourselves. Try to think ourselves. Why we are competing each other? Why we are jealous each other? Not to have better thing to others, and just want to possessing the better thing oneself. If we think all these things, then we can see how important the generous act. If we have generous mind, open heart, open hand, then everything is okay for us. At home or in your house, you can experience it when you live in joint family. If you lose even a little bit of generous mind, fight starts, quarrel starts, and kicking and beating starts. Yes, it is true, because of lack of generous act. So therefore, the generous act is really important act, and as we have already listened to it, if we can perform that generous act in such a way, how harmonious life we would possess in this world. So therefore the Buddha explained 5 kinds of benefit of the generous act, but I haven't got sufficient time to explain, so let me try to explain it tomorrow. For today,